One night, I stood on the biggest stage I had ever graced, and when I didn't see your face, what should have been the best night of my life turned into the biggest fit of rage I had ever seen myself through. Your words pierced through, and I didn't even have the chance to be numb. You said that you didn't want to be there. And at that moment, I realized I had given myself too much to you. In my mind, I longed for you to love me. And in my mind, one day, there would be this great revelation of my love for you, not bound by conditions in my love. It wouldn't be blind. It would be the greatest sight you had ever seen. And your eyes would be open to how I fought for you. My battle wounds would award you my purple heart. But you didn't know that I had crowned you king. You didn't know that I had clothed you with coverings. Boy, your cup to protect you from poisonous intentions and whispers. You didn't know that your words sent out orders, canceled dreams, and created poverty in my heart. And I thought that reconciliation was not as foreign as the distant lands of Antarctica, but your heart grew cold and left me in shock. All I wanted to do was love you, but you said I lived in a world of butterflies and sunshine. Like my joy agitated your turmoil, like my dreams violently awakened you from nightmares, like my peace disrupted your lightning and thunder, your raging storms. Like you loved the dark, but I was afraid of it. And this smile that so many have pegged as the greatest detail on this canvas, you shot daggers and left it crooked on my wall of shame. But one day, this twisted piece of sculpture caught a reflection of flawed imperfection and saw beauty in herself. Realized the textures of her heart could only be mirrored by those who saw value in art. One day, this mahogany finished frame was polished and the picture was replaced with a caption captured, "You are worth it. You are worth being called beautiful." Worth that I was just thinking about you as you are, the snatching of someone's breath in CBR, reviving it with love. You are the brightness in their eyes when they see you. You are worth long conversations and consistent pursuit because your picture, queen, your picture is worth more than 1,000 words. You are a very well put together internal and external display worth.
All right, so we are back with episode 3 of Curative Vibe. I am your host, Dewan Bland. Just an angry black man every Saturday, and I guess every Monday through Sunday. And today I have with me 1/5 of Collective Verite. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I am Brittney Charisse. I am a spoken word artist, and as Juan said, I am 1/5 of Collective Verite.
So, 1/5 of Collective Verite. I'm another 5th of Collective Verite. So we got 40% of the squad here. How long have you been doing spoken word for?
I have been doing spoken word since I was about 10 or 11. That's when I found, my niche for it. That it was actually poetry and not just, journal entry. So I started off just writing in my journal, every day. Just normal, girl stuff. My everyday, happenings at school and stuff. And then I started turning it into poetry. So I would say around 10 or 11, I found out that I was a poet.
I mean, what was you writing about at 10 or 11?
Petty stuff. I was the weird girl. So I had a group of 5 or 6 friends. And it was just drama for no reason at 10 years old, So I was just writing about, what such and such said to me and what I didn't have the nerve to say back and what I would have said if I had the opportunity. So
you wrote a burn book. That's crazy.
It wasn't like Harriet the Spy. Remember Harriet the Spy when she had the journal? She had a journal and she wrote names.
Before my time.
Well, Harriet the Spy had a journal and she wrote the name of everybody in her school and wrote negative stuff about all it. It wasn't like that.
That's crazy.
It was just me getting up the nerve to say stuff out loud that never really happened.
Oh, okay. No judgment. When I first started writing, my first poem was about the Titanic sinking, the Temptations dying, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Those were my first 3 that I came out the tuck with.
Those first 2 are pretty heavy for your first poetry.
Well, one, we was reading the Titanic.
Okay.
In our language arts class, and then I used to watch the Temptations movie every day. My mama ended up breaking the VHS. She was tired of it. She was tired of
It was a classic. I love Temptations. I could watch it straight through.
Okay. So, like, you've been writing since you was 10. What has this journey of artistry been like for you?
Man, so I didn't really consider myself an artist until about, honestly, 6 years ago. Even though I had been writing, I was just like, oh, this is just a hobby. Until around like 2012, I'll never forget. I had just came back from a break of writing, and there was an open mic night at Michigan State. Go Green. And I went there with the intention of doing things, but I punked out. And it was almost the end of the open mic night, and one of my old friends that I hadn't seen in forever, he was a writer too. He walked in the door, hadn't seen him in years, and was like, "What you doing here? Like, are you gonna do something?" I was like, "No." He went up to the host, put my name on the list, and I won first place that night and won $100. So since then, I've considered myself to be an artist. It's been a struggle with like confidence because I didn't really grow up around other artists. So I was like the only poet around me. But once I got, to the Detroit area and I started traveling to Texas to do poetry, that's when I really started embracing like the confidence as an artist and as a writer. So it's been tragic also because most of my writing comes from a dark place. Even though like I have like staple pieces, all of my writing is centered around God. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to go through some tragic things in order to find the beauty in them.
So we're gonna get to the dark writing in a moment. But talk a little bit more about the insecurity that comes with artistry. Because most people would assume, right, the talented artists, they just wake up every day and just know they body in it. So speak to more about, like, at the beginning, where did the lack of confidence come from? And do you still waver in that at all?
So at the beginning, the lack of confidence was that this is just something that I do. It's a hobby, and it wasn't for other people. It was really just a means to express myself, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to perform this for other people. And so not being around other artists is what caused the insecurity, to be honest, because sometimes if you can't see, other people doing what you're doing, then you don't recognize it as art. So that's where the main insecurity came from, is not being around people and not being able to see that as a goal. And I think like growing and then like, discovering other artists, that helped me to like gain confidence. But as a writer, even when you identify as an artist, it's still a struggle because you're putting yourself out there. Like if you are a real artist, then you're writing from a real place. And a lot of like people don't realize that is that when you get up to the microphone, you are vulnerable. Like this is you, unless you're writing for or about somebody else. Like you're a vulnerable person as an artist, and that causes a lot of insecurity because now you're at the microphone like I just bare my entire soul. Like, do people realize this?
So they do and don't at the same time. And this is a conversation we were having. A lot of times, especially, with a lot of creatives, right? A lot of the best work that they give people come from these super dark places. Whether that's Christian art or otherwise. And people love it. Like, almost, I think there's like some sick obsession with this, like, the brokenness of people where you be like, yo, man, fam, remember that poem you wrote about everyone in your family dying? I needed that. I needed that. So people will appreciate the darkness and like, no, but their life is terrible.
Right. This is real life.
So what would you say to that conversation of like people's obsession with our most hurtful pieces of art?
Well, I think that, as you grow into your artistry, you realize that you are sacrificial with self. And I think that's a part of what we have to own, is that, we are sacrificial with ourselves and with our stories. However, to the audience, I would say listen. Like, if you really, like, listen, and you see, like, the performance and the heart behind it, you can take a step back, like, oh, this is a person. This isn't just art, you know? Like, I identify with this. And maybe let's connect and let's talk about each other's story. But, you know, sometimes as audiences, like, we can be selfish. And even as an artist, I can be selfish when I'm listening to other people. Like, oh, my God, I identify with that. But, like, recognizing that there's a person behind the words.
Absolutely. So, like, another thing with artists who have the Mary J effect. We wouldn't let Mary J be happy for 25 years.
Man.
Do you struggle writing happier content?
Absolutely. Like, shout out to Danny Unspoken. We tried. We had an engagement in Ohio, and she was in the car with me, and I was like, how do you write happy? And at that moment, I realized that she doesn't really write happy, but she was trying to coach me, and I was like, it's hard. I wrote my first happy poem ever, probably like last year. And it was just, I had to catch that moment, because I've been through like a lot of trauma. And so if I catch a happy moment, then I have to write right then. Otherwise, it just feels forced.
So my question is, what is that like barrier for you?
Honestly, kind of like a superhero complex. Like, if I could bare my soul and I could tell you what I went through, as traumatic as it is, I can, A, let you know that somebody identifies with you and there's a greater reconcile to what you're going through. And I can, B, you know, just be there for you. You can come and talk to me afterwards. And I think that superhero complex, like, oh my gosh, like, I just want to let people know that I can identify with them. That's a barrier for me, because it doesn't allow me to go into, you know, the joyful aspects of things.
So, like, one of the, like, the reason the Collective was made was to have mental health conversations in our art. And, like, what has been your journey with mental health? And as writers, like, what do you think our responsibility is for the spectrum of mental health?
So, my personal journey, I struggled with depression without knowing that it was depression, probably from the age of, I want to say 9 until some days I still struggle with it. But I think the major barrier in the Black community is that we don't want to call it mental health. We don't want to, you know, identify those mental health disorders, especially in the Christian community. In my earlier years, I found that, you know, it's like, oh, well, you just need to pray. You just need, and yes, prayer works, you know, but sometimes you need to talk to somebody. So that was my major struggle, and especially with the Black community, there's a shame that comes with it. You know, like, oh, what you depressed for? And like that intergenerational like miscommunication where, you know, well, I did this, and this, and why can't you? And so that's been my major struggle, like having to like hide behind my art with the depression and kind of like try to tell people through my art, and just not having, you know, that safe space, having to really like fight for that safe space. As artists, I would be cautious to say that we have a responsibility, but if we're willing and we're whole enough to provide that safe space, that, like I said before, like someone understands, someone is here, like we know that you can be Black and still go through mental health disorders. I meet people every day, and just knowing that like someone has a safe space, I think that would be our responsibility.
That's dope. My mentor in college, is the head of our drama department, playwright or whatever, and he said for Christian artists, our responsibility is write real life. So don't write what happened in that real life situation, even if we have the answers of Christ and all of that, like write the truth in that moment. Right? So like when we talk about the spectrum, I know we have a lot of dark poems. I think that's because in this struggle for happiness, at least for me, it'd be like, oh well, this isn't this happy moment I'm trying to write about isn't real for me right now.
Right.
So you said you probably first became aware of your battle with depression at the age of 9. I think it's been more of a conversation of black youth, like not having a childhood. So at 9, how did you have these thoughts of like I might be going through some things?
Well, my mother passed away when I was 3 months old.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by my father, and it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized that man lost his whole wife, you know, like, and then had to take on a newborn baby. And so I first realized it because I was being teased. Mm-hmm. My skin was too dark. I didn't have the braces. I didn't have the contacts. My glasses were like this thick. And so it started with like low self-esteem. And then I couldn't, because I was going through those transitions, like my grades weren't like up to par. I was struggling in school. And, you know, in a black household, you better do what you're supposed to do. There's no excuses for it. And I don't think anybody really took time to, at least not to my face, like, you know, recognize, like, hey, like, you're not growing up in what a normal household should look like. So then I started dealing with suicidal ideations. Like, at that age, like, well, you know, if I'm going through all these struggles, like, then why am I even here? Like, I'm good with not even being here. And I think, again, like, black youth, like, we're so overlooked. Because, again, with that miscommunication between intergenerations, like, it's like, hey, I had a hard life, but it's like, no, like, we can stop the cycle of like having hard lives in the black community, at least on an emotional level, you know.
Yeah. So, so many follow-up questions. We're gonna slow walk this one. So suicide is the big thing. It's been a big thing, but it's more in the public sphere now of like, how do we deal with it? Like, we've had 2 seasons of 13 Reasons Why. What kept you feeling like? What kept you here when you didn't necessarily want to be?
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't, you know, parental guidance, because I actually voiced my frustrations with life. And I think a common phrase, just with tough love as well, you know, if you feel like you're gonna do it and it's not just seeking attention, then like, go ahead. Like, but what kept me here, I would say, between the ages of 9 and 11 was my grandmother, because she was that maternal role for me. But then after that, I gave my life to Christ, like, officially. Like, I had already grew up in church. But I just remember at the age of like 15, like, just hearing this song, I almost let go. And I identified so greatly with the words. And I was like, well, I can keep going. And then getting deeper grounded in my faith, that helped as well. And finding like older women to talk to, going through my teenage years, that kept me grounded too.
So, my question: so you didn't have your mother growing up, going through a lot of transitions in your childhood, but also your teenage years. One of the questions conversations I don't see often, because it's very rare, like, to see a situation where black girls grow up without their mothers. Right? The conversation is usually for black boys who grew up without their father, who taught you manhood. How did you discover womanhood?
I wouldn't say I had a lot of women around me, but because I'm so different, I discovered what womanhood was through my grandmothers and through my aunts. But I didn't discover who I was as a woman until I got to college. So it was just a gap, because, like, yeah, you know, you get taught about being a woman, but you don't get taught about how to be an individual, like who you are as an individual. So, you know, all of the womanhood advice was great, but the lack of affirmation caused me to struggle with who I was as an individual.
So just listening to you, it sounds like you're a person who had to unlearn a lot of things in the black household.
Yes.
Um, what is some advice you would give to somebody who's struggling with like just the things that go on in black households?
The advice that I would give is, and I think we're doing a great job, like as the generations, as we keep growing up. But don't be afraid to be you. And that pressure that's in the black household, whatever that pressure is, whether it be career or not going into a career, getting a skills trade or whatever that pressure is, like you have to know who you are. And if that doesn't work for you, then you're going to be an unhappy individual. If I had went the route that my father wanted me to go career-wise, I would be so unhappy right now. But because I pursued my passion, I would say make sure you identify what your passion is and don't ignore that and don't allow that to be stifled. Because anything that looks different sometimes, it can be turned off or somebody can try to, like turn it down, when you're younger. But I would say fight for your passion. Fight for your passion and your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing.
So, I mean, a lot of the a couple points in your story, whether it was the wavering of confidence as an artist, going through like identity is in your childhood, teenage years, or even in college, like where are you on your like journey of discovering self?
Well, I just turned 30, so I think I'm doing pretty well. I am fighting to not care about what people think. That's my main struggle right now. Last year, when I met the Collective and when we were brought together, that was a major turning point for me as an artist. Because when I was growing up in my artistry, it was a certain style that people expected from me, and they expected it from me every time. And I wasn't free enough to write about the things that really mattered. I wasn't free enough to write about real life situations and know that it was still Christ-centered. And I remember my mentor saying to me, she said, you'll be on a stage in front of thousands. You've spoken to the people on the stage, but what are you saying when you get off of the stage? And I think that when we write about real life situations, that creates such a moment when you come off the stage and people come up to you and you can give God glory then, or you can tell, how you made it through that transition. And so I think right now I'm at that moment where I'm writing and I'm talking to people off of the stage, not just on a microphone.
Do you still have moments of struggle with what's expected of Christians as far as our artistry goes?
I think I've finally come to a place where I'm not struggling with that anymore. If you have a problem with what I'm writing and you can't really see, that we're supposed to be doing this and we're supposed to be writing not only with your churchy colloquialisms, but with real life situations. I'll go as far as to say that you might be a part of the problem. And so I think I've become a lot more bold in that. And listen, I'm going to write about everything that I have dealt with. And people are going to identify with it. And because of that, people will still be whole. They'll still be healed. They'll still be able to be free because somebody was brave enough to write about this topic.
Vulnerability comes with a cost. Like, it weighs on you. Are there times where you feel like that cost is too high for you?
Right now, no. I feel like I've been through so much that I'm going to just run with it. And nothing that I do is of my own. And so I feel like if I have it, then it's not even mine to give. I'm just going to give it away. Like I said, whatever that might be, I'm not afraid anymore.
So there's two people who taught me a lot about indifference. Indifference in a good way, because indifference sounds like such a harsh word. It sounds, not indifference, is, I guess it's apathy. Indifference of people's opinion. One was Jesus Christ. or as my granddad would call him, Jesus H Christ. I have
Where did
no,
this H come from?
I don't know. But like Jesus, like if Jesus just felt like what you were saying had nothing to do with what his mission was, he was just like, oh, all right, like, when was it Pilate? One of them tried to give him the answer. He's like, you really ain't got no authority over me except for what my dad gave you, so I guess I'll oblige. And then Joshua Bennett said that indifference is such a healthy thing to cultivate in yourself, and not validating everybody's opinions and voices in your life, because it's just like, who are you at the end of the day? I guess Chappelle was pretty.
God.
Chappelle will tell you, like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. So we've been in the collective a year.
Yes.
How's this journey been with the collective?
It's been a journey to bring 5 different poets with 5 different styles, 5 different personalities. I think artistry-wise, we are a sight that no one has ever seen. And that's so exciting to me, to be a part of something so amazing. And honestly, the collective has helped me so much as a writer, not even just with, like just writing, but, performance and knowing how to like interact with the audience and seeing everybody just like in their element with like everything that they do so perfectly. Like Danny Unspoken has made me a better descriptive writer. You have I can't meet you on your level, but as far as wordplay, like I'm trying. And Dufay and Corzetta have helped me so much with performance and just like getting that reaction out the crowd. So it's been a journey, but it's been a good journey.
It's interesting, right? It's 5 of us, and not everyone has had to be in a group setting before. And just the difference of like when everything that you're doing is just on you instead of this like codependence for other people. How has that been?
It was a struggle at first because I was brought up to be independent. And so the good part about us being, a collective is that you don't have to do everything by yourself. And that was a huge like win for me. Is knowing, one, that I had a safe space where I wasn't sounding crazy for the things that I had been through. And 2, that I don't have to, even the smallest thing, I don't have to work the crowd by myself. Like, it's 4 different personalities that could connect, just as well as I can. And like, just like the vibe and like the family feel is amazing.
So you can answer this within the collective or just within yourself. Projecting out into the future, where do you want this artistic journey to take you?
I want it to take me as far as I can go. I had a conversation a few months ago with another mentor, and I feel like I'm so multifaceted in the most humble way. But I'm not just a poet. I'm trying, and then humility is not making yourself small. Like, humility is like about being all of who you are and nothing else, So yeah, I'm not just a poet, but I'm a writer. So I want to release all these books that I have in me. I'm a songwriter, so I got music that I need to work on. But I want to go as far as I can, for as long as I can.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna transition into another conversation that we've had. Well, beginning to have as writers. This has been an interesting conversation I've been having recently, and just want to get more thoughts with other writers. It's about mythology, Black mythology specifically, right? So for those who are watching who don't know mythology, first of all, let's play this thought game real quick.
Okay.
We are gonna go back and forth naming mythological stories or characters. And then we're going to just stop when we start drawing blanks.
Okay.
So you can go first.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. our parents had to walk 25 miles in the snow in the hood to get to school.
That's the story. I shall go with Thor.
Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That all. Now this might be controversial, but every single African American has Cherokee Indian in their blood. I mean, you know, we might have some, but it's not all Cherokee, you know?
I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. They looked at my cheekbones like, you got that Cherokee? Cherokee. Cherokee. Man, I drew a blank on after the Cherokee. So this is what I'll bring up the conversation. As you know, or may not know, Michael B was in the news.
Okay.
We ain't gonna talk about how the fact. I ain't gonna say it, but they bring Michael B in the news to slander him like every 2 months for a different reason. So, man, he got stabbed by T'Challa, and his life just hasn't been the same.
Yeah, it was rough.
So he was talking about Black mythology and the lack of it, and how we need to do more work around creating Black mythology in spaces. And a lot of the internet said you're stupid. There's so much Black mythology, blah blah blah. In context, he meant just in popular culture.
Okay.
Usually, when you hear about mythology, you hear about the Greeks and really just the Greeks. And so, for those not in tune with what we mean by mythology, but mythology is just a collection of stories that teaches truths or cultural values or whatever. So, whether you interpret like the Bible as real or metaphorical, it's still technically mythology and stuff like that. And how like important it is as like Black people to have our own mythology, to talk about our culture and our values, and the lack of knowledge around that. So usually when we had that thought exercise, like you hear a lot of the Greek stories, and then my question for people is, growing up, did you see yourself in any mythology?
I would have to say I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. No.
What are your thoughts about that?
I want to say that that's okay.
Okay.
I feel like we have such a colorful culture and such a traumatic and beautiful story that's still being written as a culture. Unfortunately, I had to see myself, in the story of my ancestors. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that real life and being able to see yourself in real life, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it also gives you a better appreciation for the culture. Because if you see yourself now, and the opportunities that we have now, granted, it's not perfect by any means, but it's a lot better, than growing up in slavery, or, just growing up in the 60s. I don't know if I would be able to do that. Especially with the mindset that I have, working in the criminal justice system. I don't think I would have made it. So, so I think it's a beautiful thing, for me, that we didn't have mythology. We have real life to look at.
I was talking to a guy yesterday. He said African Americans have a ton of mythology, but it all is mainly slavery stories. Like you can consider John Henry, stuff like that. I don't know if you read Things Fall Apart. I just hit the group text asking about Octavia Butler.
I remember.
Stuff like that. Do you think as writers, like moving forward, now that we like, we gonna take a pause and cut off slavery, or talk about slavery in a different way? Like, do we have any responsibility to write some new stories that
I think we
future
can.
generations?
I think we can write new stories, but I think they're still going to be based in truth. I think we can give the future something to look forward to, in order to, you know, continue like growing as a culture. But yeah, absolutely. I think as writers, we can do that, and we can create that space, you know, for the future generations coming up.
You feel limited, like, and what we can. I mean, I know we just kind of had this conversation, like as Christians, right? I was listening to the new Lupe album, right? The new Lupe album is a whole story about like how these slaves got thrown overboard, and instead of dying, the ocean gave them the ability to breathe, right? Because like the slaves took nature on trial, and they was like, oh, the oceans, you were complicit in slavery because you carried the boats or whatever. So they like, all right, we'll let you live here forever. And then they put like the forest on trial. They was like, man, y'all let them use the trees to build slave ships and stuff like that. And it's like, all right, so we'll give y'all fire, and forest fires are them sacrificing themselves for the time, stuff like that. And so the slaves who lived at the bottom of the bottom of the ocean, they were called the long chains. And like half of them walked to Africa, the other half stayed at the bottom of the ocean to like pull down slave ships and save slaves on their way to America. I'm like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's a dope way to like imagine the story of slavery. Then I was like, man, why don't Christians write like that? And then I was like, can we even do that without people like, yo, what you doing?
I think it's a slippery slope. I think.
How far can Christian fiction go?
I think anything outside of the biblical canon and truth, because there's metaphors like all throughout the Bible. I think.
Can we write new metaphors to teach the Bible?
Yes, and I think that's a need. Like that's a necessity. Because everybody not gonna pick up a KJV and be like, oh, I found the light. No, like
people should stop picking up the KJV.
It don't work like that. Like even now, like I can't read that straight through. I have to study. That's my study Bible. But no, I think that we can use metaphors, and I think we should. I think we need to make it as milk. Like people can't take solid food all the time, so I think we should do that if we have that artistic ability. And it's not exaggerating the text, like, by all means, make people understand, you know?
So, one of my last questions before we get into my rapid fire questions. I'm trying to say this politically correct. So, we know the real Greek word for sin that, I don't know the word. We know it means to miss the mark. There's a lot of Christian art that misses the mark, right? What should our responsibility be about just artistic excellence? And what do we, how do we help our brothers and sisters in Christ who might be missing the mark artistically for the kingdom?
We have to be examples. Oh God, it grieves me like so much. Like I just want to help, you know, because being a Christian does not mean that you present subpar work. Like you have to do it, like you said, in excellence. I feel like we need to get out here and do some workshops. We need to let them know that there is freedom in being themselves, because God created us like individually, and we have personalities for a reason. And we go through specific situations for a reason. It's okay, you know, to be yourself and to do it excellently.
Artists are a sensitive bunch, though. How do you pull somebody aside and say that ain't it?
Well, you don't necessarily have to do that. When I met you and Dufay specifically, I noticed, like, oh, they're talking about other things. They're talking about real life situations. I can do that too. It's okay. Like, I felt like it was okay just seeing the example. And I wouldn't recommend, like, hey, like, it's the trash. Like, let me, like, you know, mentor you. Like, but I think if you create a space of safety and you can work through some things, and do not even a formal workshop, but just like be open to like talking to people, because sometimes like even good artists, like we can be a little arrogant and just like leave it at like, oh, they trash, instead of like embracing, you know, them and trying to like walk with them for them to be better artists.
Artistic discipleship is important.
Yes.
Rapid fire questions. What is 2 reasons why the University of Michigan is better than State?
There are no reasons. U of M is not better than Michigan State. It's go green all the time for the rest of my life.
My condolences. What is your go-to drink at Starbucks?
A venti caramel macchiato with 2 extra shots of espresso made with soy.
Okay. We're entering fall season. Favorite type of clothing item in fall?
Sweaters and scarves and boots.
So you just listen to the whole outfit?
Sorry. Because they go together. It's like one. Like it's...
Okay. Olivia Pope or Annalise Keaton?
Annalise.
I was about to say there's a lot of murder there, but they both been wilding. Favorite Kim song?
Can't Stop Loving You.
Okay. Kim has a lot of turtlenecks, like.
He does. He's like standard, stereotypical 40-year-old black male.
Like if you want to line Kim up, just throw like a cashmere turtleneck sale, and then never mind. A song of the summer for you.
What was the song of the summer? Anything by LMA. Like I just discovered LMA this summer, so I was playing on her EP.
If Tony texts you and uses the nail polish emoji, what's your reaction?
I'm offended because I need to get my nails. That's the only thing I can do.
Like if y'all arguing and then he got a rebuttal, and then after his rebuttal he put the nail polish emoji.
I'm looking at my phone like, dang, he just got me. But I'm upset.
What's the last young people dance you tried to learn and then gave up on?
Honestly, I don't even know what it's called. Oh, I'm not gonna do it.
The shoot?
Yeah.
Hey, look. I was looking at it like it looked like I could body this, but I'm like,
it looked easy, but I'm like, I don't look like
I'm like, I ain't got it no more. Okay, so that was the rapid fire question. Before we get into our playlist for the week, talk to the people about the show we got coming up and what they can expect.
Okay, so November 24th, we have our show coming up, Wayne State Creative Arts Theater. Not you don't know. Listen, it's gonna be an amazing show. It's versatile. We have surprises, live music again. So I would just say expect more, and expect change and
competition.
Oh,
so we a team, right? But one of the ways we challenge ourselves that is healthy is we try to compete with each other. We be like, hey, yo, fam, this show though, I'm going to be the best.
Literally, like I'm the best. All my stuff is better than yours, but it's healthy competition. It makes you better.
Yeah. I was about to get into my competition bag, but we're gonna save it for later on. I want to bring the whole collective on one day. But
we should. We have to.
Y'all crazy though.
We are, but we are. I think we're good for being who we are. Like, if you see us, this is what you get. Like, you get this at the shows. You get this in person. This is who we are.
Bless the world. Bless the world. Let's get into our playlist, man.
Okay.
So, tell the people. So, we're going to go back and forth for our songs. You're going to say the song you picked and why.
Okay. So, my song by her, I just think it's beautifully written. I think it's soulful. I think she's an amazing artist. And I identify with it at the moment. So.
Gabby still ain't took her glasses off.
She hasn't. It's okay, though, because she's a real artist. Do what you want.
I don't know with that, so she could just hide.
She can hide. She can do whatever she wants if she's talented.
Put myself in some shadows. See if
it's already a him. You can't do that. He already stole that idea. With every other song.
That's why she showed her face. Him is wild. Like my song, my first song is from Black, Pretty Little Fears. I love that song. Then so a guy's rapping at the end of the song. I'm like, yo, this dude is fire. Cause when I listen to music, I don't look at the the credits. I don't be knowing who on the song until I check for it. This dude is fire, man. Like, yo, if he keep at it, he might have a future in this thing. So I flipped the phone to see who it was. It was just J. Cole. So for a whole verse, I thought I was discovering J. Cole. I was geeked. Like, I'm about to get a whole new playlist out of this.
That's
so
real.
Pretty Little Fears featuring Black.
Okay, so this one is a little weird, but I've always loved this song. It's called Nobody Knows by Tony Rich. And me and my daddy just used to vibe in the car to this song. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a really tragic song. And maybe as an artist, like, as a dark artist, like, I just identify with it because he's so sad. But it's just beautifully written. And you could just see yourself, like, with him. Like, oh, Tony, it's okay.
I don't know if I want to see myself with Tony Rich. I'm going to pass on that one. My next one is Workout by Chance, the rapper. Like there was another Chance. One, because it has a lot of funny lines. Like Chance calls all his ex-girlfriends ugly in the first verse. And then was like, nah, y'all not ugly. Y'all know y'all look better than me. Which is a wild way to apologize. Like, you're not ugly. You look better than me. And what does that even mean? But it's about him, like, loving his baby moms and, like, wanting to assure her that she has nothing to worry about. And I support it. I don't have a baby mom. So I have exes.
But no baby mom.
Nope. And I'm going to be Chance for Halloween, so.
I think that's a perfect fit.
So I'm going to dress up like Super Mario.
Anyway.
So my 3 hat is in the mail.
Oh, man. The last song is Naked by LMA.
Okay.
It's not what you think. It's about being vulnerable and being loved, like being open to being loved vulnerably. And I think I identify with that song because that's been a major like struggle of mine. It's just putting up a wall like with everybody. And it has a real soulful sound and she's
LMA's been on the road.
Yeah.
Now she can only hide that song from Jacquees for just enough time.
Lord. Pray for Jacquees.
Did you see?
Jacquees needs prayer. And he just needs to stop, just to be honest.
Stop coveting?
He needs a workshop.
But did you see the Chris Brown video?
I didn't.
I'll play it for you after this.
Okay.
My last one is Human by Ramad. Well, it's really Arnell, but it's Ramad. It's his artist name. R-R-A-M-A-D. It's Human. His whole album is called Human, but he has Pursue Me and Human on the album. Those are really dope, man. So go check out the homie. And yeah, that's it for our playlist. Tell the people where they can find you on the socials.
So on Instagram, you can find me at Brittney Charisse, Brittney. And then Charisse, Charisse. Facebook, Brittney Charisse. Twitter, Brittney Charisse. I've been working with my friends who tell me that I need to just keep one name.
Keep it universal.
Yeah. And at Collective Verite, like you could. Yeah, Collective Verite on all platforms.
We're gonna put the link to get your tickets in the description box. Find me in somebody's daughter's DMs. Whenever I drop my location, it's in somebody's DMs. I'm playing. Find me at The Book of Wine on Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, all I do is take thought selfies, but on Twitter...
And your scars.
Yeah. People be hating on the scars. On Twitter, I'm doing nothing but trolling. And Facebook, I'm saved. So,
sometimes.
That's the end of our episode 3 of Curative Vibes. Hit me up. Let me know what artists you want to see sit down at the mansion and drink coffee and tea with me. All right, well, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you for having me. It's been
We
a
out.
joy.
Get your tickets.
Yes, please get your ticket.
Again, to be used as an instrument with hammer-weighted keys. And as every scale in arpeggio weighed down on me, starting in crisis, the key of C, death, D, bitterness, B, and the sustaining pedal must have been held down on G, grief. I couldn't understand how I was expected to echo the sounds of praise when I had been tuned to create pitches of loud frequencies that reflected my pain. I was tuned to complain, tuned to give off vibes that gave feedback to my screeching cries, tuned to produce loud beats that blew me away from serenity. I could no longer reach the heights of musical tranquility, and as I climbed the scales, I fell flat with every sharp chord that wrapped itself around my neck. Perhaps I had been trapped in some composer's sad song. Who was this author? He was the finisher of my song, Faith, and his word began to intertwine with the sound that I was making. I was mistaken. A beautiful song was being created. No, this was not the work of Satan. Never could he come up with something so divinely orchestrated, complex, nor creative. This was my lifetime, signatured by God, despite it looking like chaos. And the more I was pressed, I was impressed that each measure held something immeasurably more than I could ask or think. Peace in the midst of my sorrow and the jagged stabbing pain of staccato. My sad ballad was being turned into worship. Legato, every major key event began to make a minor sound. It was no longer forte, loud. And just when I thought it was ending, the DSL coda took me back to the beginning. What first looked like a complicated song filled with 16th and 32nd notes was now beginning to flow. Every break of every beat, every measure that held repeat was now working out for my good and his glory. It produced my song and his story. Who is this author? Jesus, the finisher of my song, Faith. This can be referenced in Romans 8 and 28.